Welcome to Everyday Truth with Kurt Skelly. We believe the Bible is true and relevant to everyone, everywhere, every day. Today, we join Kurt at one of the many biblical and historical sites in Greece. To fully experience these incredible sites, be sure to watch each day's video on YouTube. Now, let's see where Kurt is today.
2,500 years ago, this was a very narrow pass right in this area. And this was where Leonidas and the 300 held off the Persians for those 2 days. You heard the story on the bus. I'm not going to retell that story. Here's the reason why I love coming here. Because every huge historic spot in Greece that relates to the battles with the Persians is a fulfillment of prophecy. We're standing at a place that is a fulfillment of prophecy. Why? Because God predicted what would happen with the world empires. He predicted all of this. So let's go back from 480 BC. Let's go back about 100 years before that. Not even 100 years before that. Probably just about 60 or 70 years before that. When Daniel was an older man. So think about this. When Daniel was captured by the Babylonians in 606 BC, transported to Babylon, they castrated him. You think about being a 12-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy, taken from your parents, rich family, castrated, put into a brainwashing program, just all of what happened to Daniel, and yet how God blessed him because he just purposed in his heart. And remember that initial vision that Daniel saw was in Daniel chapter 2. Nobody could solve it. They finally found Daniel. Daniel said, yeah, I'll tell you what it means. My God will. And remember what the first vision was? It was this statue, this image. And the head was of gold, and the breast was of silver, and the torso was brass, the legs were iron, and then the toes were iron and wood or dirt mixed together, clay mixed together. So think about what God said. These are the kingdoms of the world. Here's Babylon. Now think about telling Nebuchadnezzar this. And Babylon didn't hear anything beyond the head. Because the next chapter, he makes an image all of gold, right? Like, oh, God, I heard what you're going to say, but here's who I am. But there's the head of gold, then the Medo-Persian Empire. So we already know who's going to take over. And then we have Greece, right? So he's predicting the world empires. God is telling them how he's going to manage world history. He's telling them that. It's amazing. It's amazing. So that's chapter 2. Chapter 4, it's a separate prophecy toward Nebuchadnezzar about the tree. Chapter 8 of Daniel is about 70 years later. So think about this, 70 years later, and Daniel receives a series of visions from God about the future. So Daniel's heart is, I want to go home. Daniel's heart is, my whole nation is in captivity. Daniel's heart is, the northern kingdom's gone. The southern kingdom doesn't even have a home. There's no temple. There's no capital. There's no military. We're God's chosen people. We're supposed to reflect the power of God, the glory of God to the world, and we're nobodies. And God's saying, Daniel, just wait. Just wait. I got this under control. Just wait. I have a plan. Just wait. And Daniel saw a snippet of that plan. Why? Because there came a day, remember Belshazzar? There came a day when the Medo-Persian Empire took over, and Daniel was there. And ironically, Daniel became a president in that kingdom as well. That's Daniel chapter 6, and the lion's den, the whole thing. That's a Medo king, Darius, not to be confused with Darius later on. And so here's the Medo-Persian Empire. Daniel's seeing a bit of it. He opens his window every day toward what? Jerusalem. What's he praying for? He's praying for the peace of Jerusalem. He's praying for the restoration of Jerusalem. He's praying, for God to begin to do what God has promised he's going to do. And so he's seeing these snippets, isn't he? So God gives him a series of visions in Daniel 7, Daniel 8, Daniel 9. And in these visions, God's reiterating the structure that he's going to allow. Babylon's done. Medo-Persia. So now in Daniel chapter 8, we have this vision about this ram that has two horns. One horn is bigger than the other horn. And the Bible says that is Medo-Persia. The Medes are smaller. The Persians are bigger. It's a ram that destroys the north and the east and the west and the south. It's this great kingdom. But then what defeats the ram? The he-goat that has one horn, one notable horn, Alexander the Great, that breaks. Alexander the Great dies at age 33. And 4 horns take its place. And those are the 4 kings that follow Alexander that history tells us, right? Cassander and Lycomachus and Seleucus and Ptolemy, the kings. And then even from one of those horns, the Seleucid line, comes a little horn, right? Antiochus Epiphanes, a precursor to Antichrist himself. So all of this is happening. And then he gets this other vision. And Daniel chapter 11 and 12, actually, it's really, really specific. But what's interesting in that prophecy is in Daniel 11 verses 1 and 2, it says, here's the Persian Empire. There will be 3 more kings. So here's Daniel. He's writing, there's going to be 3 more main kings. And then there's going to be a 4th king, and he's going to be more rich than all of them. So who was the 4th king? Xerxes. Guess what his name is in the Bible? Ahasuerus. So where do you read about Ahasuerus? In Esther chapter 1. And how does the book of Esther start? With Ahasuerus throwing a great feast that lasts 6 months long. And he invites all the leaders of the world, 127 provinces. What's he doing? Fundraising. He's fundraising. He's unifying the kingdom, feeding them, having these lavish dances, bringing them all in. We're one hegemonous kingdom, right? And what's he doing? He's fundraising. He's networking. Why? Because he starts reigning in 486 BC. That's 483. By 480, he's on the march, attacking Greece. And what does he do? He comes to Asia Minor. We were just there, right? He crosses the Hellespont, or the Dardanelles, with an amazing engineering wonder, pontoon bridges, like incredible, 250,000 soldiers. He gets to this spot. He's held off for a season by, you heard the story on the bus, and then he marches down, but they evacuate Athens. We were just there. When they get to Athens, the city is evacuated. They burn Athens, so that when they rebuild Athens, they're rebuilding Athens the same time that Nehemiah is rebuilding a wall back in Jerusalem. Think about that. They sail their navy down, all these ships, but through some great maneuvering, they lose the battle at Salamis. So they ultimately lose. So what does Xerxes do? He goes home, licking his wounds. He's lost. His big enemy. Now, did he lose? Yes. But what did God say? God said, this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. So what does Xerxes do? He goes home and he's sad. And that's problematic. So what do? They have a beauty pageant to get him a wife. And he has a wife whose name now is what? Esther, Hadassah. And what happens? There's a plot in Persia to get rid of the Jews, Haman. See, Satan is fighting out here. Satan's fighting in here. God's in control out here. God's in control right in here. You know what's interesting? Xerxes has a dad whose name is Darius. He rules from 522 to 486. Darius actually attacks the Greeks as well. He gets as far as a place called Marathon. We know what Marathon means, right? And at the Battle of Marathon, he too is defeated. He can't defeat the Greeks. They're outnumbered 2-1. The Greeks win. And after the battle, one of their soldiers in full armor, because you'd never take your armor off. That's a sign that you've been defeated. He keeps all his armor on, runs the 26.2 miles all the way back to Athens to tell them we've won, and then he collapses and dies. Think about that. the Athenians had won. So Persia lost with great numbers. Persia lost with great numbers. It makes no sense to historians, but it makes perfect sense to Bible-believing Christians. Why? Because God rules over the affairs of men. And the stone that's cut out without hands, that becomes a mountain that rules the world. And the Ancient of Days, who has everything under control and in his wisdom knows the habitations of men and knows the kingdoms of this world. And that same God that allowed Babylon and it fell, and allowed Persia and it fell, and allowed Greece and it fell, and allowed Rome and it fell, and the revived Roman Empire and it will fall, is the one that will rule and reign from Jerusalem one day, and his name is Jesus Christ. And so when we come to this place, what do we realize? We realize that the battle is the Lord's, and God is the one that ultimately is in control. So thanks for coming to Thermopylae. This is a great, great sight, at least for me.